There we go. Everyone's normal size. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to do a quick thing on that. There we go. Okay, Josh, good evening. Today is August the 10th. And what I wanted to kind of go over today was a relationship between layered money, and I always can never remember the name of the author, even though I just looked, Nick Bahites, layered money. And specifically, there's a diagram in it. And I want to compare and contrast that with something that's going on in the crypto universe right now. Particularly, it's a flavor of XRP, but hear me out, it's not necessarily XRP. So, anyways, if you're ready, we can dive into this. Let me see if I can get my
Let's roll right into it.
thing switched up here. And you're small again.
I'm small for some reason.
There we go. Um, So what you're looking at on the left-hand side of the screen right now is the concept that you have this hierarchy of money. And at the very top of this hierarchy, you have gold and US treasuries. And what happens then is this gets put into the Federal Reserve, I should say, holds this tier one, the best of the best assets. And from this, the Federal Reserve will turn around and issue either bank reserves to the banks that you and I can't access, or notes, cash, which we commonly can access. Now here's where it gets interesting, and we'll get back to this point in just a second. We as consumers, if we have paper cash, and let's just pretend all we have is paper cash for the time being, we put our paper cash into a bank. You bank with Chase, Wells, a local credit union, whatever. You put it in there and you're issued bank deposits. Many people think, as did I, that cash in your wallet is synonymous with a bank deposit. And that's actually not the case. Because when you take that dollar and put it into the bank, you change the nature of the dollar instead of being an IOU of the Fed. So this is Gam talking about what is it a liability of. Cash would be a liability of the Fed. When it goes into the bank, it's an IOU of the bank. In other words, Chase owes you back those dollars. Bank of America owes you back those dollars or whatever. So changing this, so with that little segue out of the way, what's going on in crypto right now is Ethereum's superpower, if you will, is the ability to run smart contracts on the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine. And Ethereum arguably I believe, was the pioneer in this, and it is still very much the leader in it. So if you have a smart contract, if this, then that happens, and this money goes here or whatever, you don't necessarily have to worry about reliance on a third party because the contract is regulated, or not regulated, but the contract is enforced by the actual EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, which is secured itself by the Ethereum blockchain. Point is that you don't have to have this third party reliance on it. And what's going on right now with XRP is there's a third party company called FLR, which is trying to bring this concept to the XRP ledger. And this is where it's about to come back into the layered money concept. The way they do it is it gives a market participant, whether it's you, me, or whatever, right, the ability to, in a sense, be our own bank and issue our own currency without actually having to give up control of what we hold. And let me explain what I mean by this.
Yeah, because right now it sounded like everyone would just be their own central bank, except their central bank can issue directly into the economy, unlike our central bank.
So here's the big thing: is you want to assume that no one's going to trust anyone else. So you need to have a trustless system that's going to work for all of this. So, for example, let's say I've got some Bitcoin, you've got some Litecoin, third person has some Doge, whatever, or USDC Tether, you name it. But essentially, there's some digital asset. So the way this works is that I say, well, listen, I want to use my Bitcoin and exchange it or stake it, or I want to do something with it that's going to be smart contracty. And what I'll do is I'll use Flare to wrap my asset. And let's just go with Bitcoin for the time being. But at the same time, I also don't necessarily want to give up control of my Bitcoin. And I also want to know that if I'm getting someone else's, let's say, Doge, or pick whatever your favorite currency is, as I'm doing a swap or whatnot, I want to know that that person's good for it. And if that person fails to go through with his or her part of the deal, I'm going to be compensated in some way, shape, or form. And so the way Flare gets around this is Flare says, okay, listen, here's what you can do. if you want to basically have a wrapped Bitcoin on the Flare network that you can interact with and it'll become smart or whatnot, you have to stake or you have to lock up a corresponding amount of the Flare token, which is Spark, SPRK. And so the reason this happens is that if I issue a Justin wrapped Bitcoin on the Flare network, this is the proof that I've actually put in the collateral. That is the Spark tokens that stand behind it. And I think it's a 2.5, I think it's a 2.5x rate is the collateral rate on that front. So in other words, imagine like a wrapped Bitcoin with a Justin logo on it, or a wrapped Litecoin with the Josh logo on it.
So where I would have some problem with that is where like that then everybody has to trust this Flare network, and it would still be everything is always a thought abstraction with like because like that would just be Flare. What if Flare just says, all right, my my friend Jay Powell, I will say that he has 100 PAL Bitcoins, even though he actually doesn't. There's no one to fact check that except unless there's a completely um, like everyone thinks that we need a currency that is completely decentralized, and I agree it should be decentralized in the fact where I transact with you and no one knows that we're transacting. But I think that there has to be complete transparency that says the transaction has just occurred between an entity A and entity B. It doesn't have to say who those entities are, but we need transparency to know how money works. Because I think the problem with our monetary system right now is people don't know money. People don't know how this works. And if because there's not transparency, if we had a complete transparent, and who would even know if we could actually track it? But there's just too much questions and not enough answers regarding our monetary
Yeah.
system.
So no, no,
Would you
oh,
get that?
absolutely, absolutely. And
Or would you push back?
the way that, this is the way that it gets around that. It tries to do everything in a trustless environment. And the point is that you can have any point of failure. So if the person who, let's say that you've got these virtual representations, and this goes back to, I think it's chapter 3 and 4 in Layered Money, where you first saw the merchants issue, or I think it was the banks at the time, basically issuing the bills of credit or letters of credit or whatnot. So the question then becomes: I want to be anonymous. In other words, I want to retain. Should I choose to do so, my anonymity? But at the same time, I also need to let people know that I'm good for whatever I'm pledging. So if I'm going to issue my own wrapped digital asset or whatnot that actually can stand behind it. And so the way Flare gets around this is Flare creates its own token, and that Flare's own token, and this is another video, but just work with me here for a second. Flare's own token will have an exchange rate to whatever digital assets get put onto the Flare network. So there'll be a Flare to USDC, or Flare to Bitcoin, or Flare to XRP, whatever exchange rate for this stuff. And so in order to actually issue a wrapped asset, you have to pledge the corresponding amount of Flare to make sure that if somebody calls you, like if somebody actually says, okay, Justin, I've got one of your wrapped Bitcoins, I want you to unwrap it and send it back to my private address, or send it to me. Send it to me. I want the real thing. That would be like the very top. Hold on. That'd be the very top, not the bottom, right?
So, like 1-for-1 banking, like not fractional reserve banking, you have to hold the actual asset, or would it be fractional reserved? Would it be all right? You have to hold percent backed, or would it be 100% backed?
It would be more, as it's currently designed right now, it would be more than 100% backed. And the reason is because it's
How is that?
it's over collateralized. Let's say that.
Okay.
But see, and this is actually one thing I'm very weak on, because so you engage in the transaction at a 2.5 exchange rate, and then you have currency fluctuation. So all of a sudden, well, you started at 2.5, now all of a sudden, let's say you're at a 1-to-1 ratio or whatnot, which is less than what the network is saying is going to be there. I'm very fuzzy on how it gets around that. But this is the thing that I think that's really interesting, is that it gives you and me and the individual a way to issue our own currency, very much in the way, I think, that the merchant class and the banks of the 16, 17, 8, whatever, could do so as well. And because of the math and all that jazz behind it.
So something else that I'm not kind of thinking of is let's say let's say this, like me and you transact, and I give you a Josh
Okay.
Bitcoin wrapped, and the price falls by 50%. Is it going to be like kind of like a repo agreement where I have to keep on pledging more and more collateral as the price of Bitcoin falls?
Gotcha. So the cross current rate you want to think about here is what is the price of the wrapped asset, Bitcoin in this example, to the Spark token, which is the collateral that's applied for all of this. So if the price of Bitcoin appreciates in comparison to the Spark token, that's a really good question because you might say, well, listen, at a 2.5x over collateralization, I'm not too concerned. Bitcoin suddenly shoots up, something happens, whatnot. They try to make it illegal, whatever. The point is, you suddenly have this massive price appreciation, and it's a price appreciation that does not that exceeds the price appreciation of whatever the Spark token is. Well, now what? I don't know. Good question. Good
Yeah.
question.
And I mean, this is still so new. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I guess in the early
Yeah.
stages of all this. But that could be going on for the past decade. But our monetary system is to really come to fruition. Like, I think people think things happen so fast, and they do, especially today in the world of digital technology. But I don't think they happen this fast. I would be much more interested in how this is going to play out within the next 10 years. Because the U.S., let's say the U.S. can adopt this, we still have an entire world, like an entire world that still needs to become a first class, like a world. I mean,
Yeah.
like what the dude? What am I trying to think of? What's the word? like digitalized and a first class society. What fuck? What's it
First
called?
world.
First
First
world.
world. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean yes. We still need to bring people up. That like there's no way. I don't think this is gonna happen in like Honduras right now, or it's some of these other countries. I've never been to them, so I'm not too sure, and I could be completely wrong, and I hope I am. And you've done a lot more traveling? Do you think that this would be possible on a worldwide basis
I th-
as our system is now?
I think it'll be possible to the extent people have a smartphone, for better or worse.
Okay.
Like that. That's
Do they have smartphones in these super foreign countries, like in the deep Africa or just across the world?
I do not know the answer to that question, but what I would
It has to start somewhere. I mean, if America can say start transacting on a day-to-day basis in these so-called what is it even called?
so in this particular case, what's going on is an individual can essentially issue their own representation. So an individual can become their own bank.
What would be the point of that though?
So here's what you would do. Let's say that you've got a bunch of let's say you've got a bunch of Bitcoin. You've got 10 Bitcoin or whatever, and you know that if you provide this to the Flare network, or if you wrap it on Flare, you will get a reward paid out in Spark for the ability to do this. And then once the Bitcoin is wrapped on the Flare network, you can then turn around and stake it. You can then loan it out to someone else or whatever, right? So the incentive to do that is that you would earn a revenue stream above and beyond, or there would be yield suddenly that would accrue to you for doing this on that front. So that's the why you would do it, is to generate passive income.
And I have an idea. How about we bring our friend Roberto on
Oh,
and go because I'm sure he's done a much deeper dive than I could even dream of doing.
yeah, and like I said, this is like I said, I just had this epiphany in the car too, and so like I need to. This is one of the things where I think graphics would really help out a
Hmm.
lot. But the cool thing, and this is kind of the epiphany I had too, that I just want to circle back to once more, is that this gives the Bank of Josh, the Bank of Justin, the Bank of Roberta, whatever, the ability to issue their own stand-in assets for the real deal. And it does so in a way where you don't necessarily have to trust that Justin or Josh or whatever are going to become insolvent. Because if you ever do, so for example, let's say I issue 10.
They collateralize that
Exactly.
like the repo transaction,
Exactly. The collateral
and
backs it
having
all
that
up.
one-to-one back is so much better. Me transacting with you than my bank transacting with your bank. Is that the gist of it?
That's kind of the just.
And I completely agree with that.
You
Like if we could say transact one person to another person, all like I want to transact specifically with this business or that business. I don't want my bank to be involved in that transaction. I want to do it, and that is where I see massive amounts of hope in the future for this
and
digital currency world. If like the social planners don't,
yeah,
which
calm down there, Gammon. Calm down there, Gammon. Yeah, I know, I know. He that live stream last night. He was.
I mean there's so much to be hopeful for, and it looks like the world is going to shit, and it might just be, but hey, some shit doesn't smell that bad.
There we go. Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it's the fourth turning. You know that you can make the argument for that. But what I would say is this too. It's not so much just the transaction. It's being able to leverage what you've already got. Because like, let's say that you're looking for a passive revenue stream or whatnot. You have a bunch of crypto assets, but you don't know what you want to do with it. So number one, you can maybe deposit it in a crypto bank or whatnot. But as soon as you give up control, as soon as you have to put your digital asset in the wallet of keys you don't control, it's no longer yours. Now, legally or whatever, okay, that could be the case. But the point is, if you don't hold the keys to it, you don't control it. And this is the cool thing on this front is that you're able to retain the key. So in other words, the digital asset you have never, it's like this. It's like selling call options in a strange way. It's like selling call options where someone has the ability to call you on the it's weak, but it's going to work.
Just like a repo transaction.
Just like a repo transaction, but there's no set date for the thing to flip around.
Yeah. Just like kind of the functionality of it. Like I transact, like you need to put up, like I want $1 million, but you don't want to just lend me $1 million. I need to put up $1 million worth of collateral that and then we're gonna set an agreed interest rate, and then we'll transact. And when we're ready, we will retransact and take our. I'll take back my collateral, and you'll take back the $1 million.
And what's more, like let's say that I issue 10 rep bitcoins. Let's say I issue them to you, and then let's say you do whatever you want with them. And let's say now they're owned by like 10 other people or whatnot. Of those 10 people, 2 people might want to say, okay, listen, Justin, I want yes, it's great that I have this wrap Bitcoin, and yes, it's great that it's backed at 2.5x collateral with Spark, but here's the deal. I want to send the Spark back to you, and I want to take delivery of the underlying assets. So here's my address, and you have, I don't know, like there's X amount of time, that.
And that's just so much better because it's happening on a person-to-person basis instead of a bank-to-bank basis. So, you know what? That is actually I'm glad that you brought this to our attention today.
Yeah, and like I need to do a better job of trying to explain it because like when we go back or
no, I think you did a really good job because
do better.
So for anyone that knows, I know yeah, of course we can always do better, but I did not know it. I didn't even know what this thing was. We just started rolling, and I mean I think I get it pretty well now. At least the basics of it. I would want to dig into the crypto because he does these deep dives on crypto because he's a hard crypto guy. And I would like to see what his current thoughts are right now. I'm sure they haven't changed too much, but nonetheless, we'll try and get him on.
2000. It's at what, like 85 cents a day, which means that we only have $1,999.15 to go. So hey, every little bit helps. So yeah, Josh, let's reach out to Roberto and see if he wants to give us any insights to check into it. And I'll find some more stuff to send your way. But anyways, that's pretty much all I had. So Josh, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think this was a really good discussion. I learned a lot, and I hope some other people did as well.
Josh, until next time, sir.